This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week we are once again talking about LinkedIn. I think this is probably our most covered subject on the show so far in the little over 2 years that we've been doing this. But I mean, for our audience, though, it makes a ton of sense because LinkedIn is one of the most valuable marketing tools that you have at your disposal right now. And I just want to make sure that I get as many voices speaking into that as I can to really encourage you to really dive into it. This week specifically, we're talking about, really how you can drill down more and talk about how you can actually start to get some clients from LinkedIn. And to do that, I am joined by the founder of Law Firm Success Group, Alay Yajnik. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, John, for having me on Spotlight Branding. It's great to chat with you again.
Absolutely. So before we jump in, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get to where you are, start your law firm coaching group, and specifically, how did you become obsessed with LinkedIn?
Sure. Yeah, I'll keep it short. So after 17 years in Silicon Valley, I decided I'd had enough of that world and wanted to put my skills to use for people that I thought could really benefit from them. And when you think about the lawyer community and your listeners will get this, the issues around, substance abuse, around depression, around, lots of challenges that lawyers have.
Yeah.
It's just brutal, especially when you think about what these people do for a living. They're helping their clients through some of the most challenging times in their lives. And even if their clients are corporations, those corporations have employees, they have directors, and those people are really, they oftentimes control the fate of thousands of people. So it's really impactful work that they do, and they deserve better. And what we found is that by running those law firms like really good businesses, the attorneys make more money. They're a lot happier. Staff retention goes down. They do better work for their clients, actually, and they take real time off. Like they're taking, a 2-week, a 4-week vacation and not checking email, not working during that time. And it's just been awesome to be able to do that. And what we realized over the last probably the couple of years is all of our clients got super busy. And they got to the point where they were saying, look, Alay, look, we still want to grow our law firm, but we don't have time for networking. We don't have time to write articles. We don't have time to go out and meet people one-on-one. Is there a shortcut way that we can do that? And I'm one of the earlier adopters of LinkedIn. I think I joined right in the first couple of years. And I've been teaching lawyers how to use LinkedIn for business development for a long time. And so we thought maybe we should focus on this area and really discuss some of the best practices that we've been sharing with our clients for years. And that's how LinkedIn for Lawyers is born. The website is linkedinforlawyers.net if anyone wants to go check it out.
Awesome. So yeah, you've been on LinkedIn for years now, so you would know this answer better than anyone. Why is it a good tool for lawyers and even other industries where kind of that referral-based business is a vital part of the firm's success?
Great question. And I think we have to maybe make a differentiation here between my approach and the approach maybe of others. There are some folks like me that teach that LinkedIn is a platform for building authentic business relationships. And there's ways to do that authentically, to do that ethically, to do that in a way that's, as I like to say, not sleazy and not cheesy.
Yes.
There are, however, my inbox is filled with them, those groups that are out there that are saying and making crazy promises about results from LinkedIn. I've tried those. I did not get results with them. In fact, some of them got my account suspended. I mean, so we're not that group. And so we're not going to pitch, fast results. You're going to get, 6 figures in 3 months using LinkedIn. Clients just going to fall into your lap. It just, our experience is it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Much like the marketing, I think, John, that you teach your clients. It's a great platform for building authentic relationships. And why it's great is because it's really, really leveraged by putting out content on LinkedIn, by engaging others on LinkedIn, by engaging with others on LinkedIn. Your megaphone just gets so much bigger. I mean, you
Yeah.
are reaching hundreds more people, thousands more people within the same amount of time. And to the extent that what you're sharing out there is consistent with your brand and what you're trying to deliver, you're going to get connections, you're going to get results that way.
Yeah. And, I mean, I think you and I have talked about this a little bit before. It's not a sexy term, but it's playing the long game. It's not like what those other people are saying where, oh, your phone's going to ring off the hook overnight. Like, no, it's going to take some time to build up. It's a momentum thing, but if you can stay consistent with it and build that momentum, build that library of content, and basically grow the size of your megaphone, like, to use your terminology, that's where you'll start to see, success and results come in over time.
Yeah, and it's really kind of fun, right? If you actually plan it out a little bit and you're on LinkedIn for maybe 15, 20 minutes a day, you're commenting on other people's posts, you're engaging with others, you're reaching out to people in your network, and guess what? Some of them accept your invitations. And these are people that you've wanted to connect with. And now you have an opening to have an authentic, non-salesy conversation about what they do, what you do, what you're seeing in the industry. It's almost like you're going to a networking event, but instead of it being, 100 people at the networking event, there's thousands of people, and these are the people who you want to meet. And
Yeah,
so by reaching out and having that initial connection, it's kind of like saying, "Hi, how are you?" at a networking event. And the other person says, "Hi, how are you?" back. And now you have an opening to actually have a great conversation, but not a sales conversation.
exactly. So how do kind of the starting point then for approaching LinkedIn? Obviously, you need to have a strategy around who you're reaching out to, how you're starting those conversations. But even before that, it starts with your profile. Obviously, you have to have one in order to be on the platform. What are some of the most important things that people need to make sure that they do with their profiles so that they're putting their best foot forward when they are reaching out and introducing themselves and making that first impression?
Great question, John. They need to think. They need to think about what needs to go on their profile. LinkedIn started as a job search platform, but it's evolved into not just that, but also a powerful networking tool, which is how we use it now. So
Mhm.
people have to take off that, okay, I'm looking for my next job hat, and put on the, okay, I'm looking to actually connect with my market hat. So an example of that might be, instead of saying that the headline of the LinkedIn profile says real estate attorney, what it might say is, uh, real estate deal maker in, the San Francisco Bay Area or whatever region it might be. And by really focusing on that headline and making it as impactful as possible, non-generic, super targeted on what you're trying to do, um, you can really elevate your LinkedIn game. But all of that requires upfront thinking about, what is the brand that I want to present on LinkedIn? What am I projecting? Who do I want to meet? Who are the kinds of clients I want to serve? What value do I bring for those clients? If you can do that work up front, then writing the headline, which is really impactful, gets a lot
Mhm.
easier. Writing the about section, which is also really impactful, gets much easier. And that's also a great way to take a look at your profile picture to make
Mhm.
sure that that is on brand. And if you're doing those three things, you have a really good profile picture that's appropriate and current. You have a
Mhm.
really eye-catching headline,
Yeah.
which, John, I'm sure you help your clients write. So it's a bit of a hook, and that you have really substantive about section, which talks about the great work that you do, how to reach you, the kinds of clients that you serve, and is truly authentic to you. Those three things are going to put your profile head and shoulders above 90% of the people that are out there on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And so then, kind of conversely to that, what kind of mistakes do you often see? I mean, because like, I know for us, when we're looking at like a website, for example, a lot of times we see the same kind of like generic images, somebody sitting on the courthouse steps or with a scales of justice or whatever, or like their entire imaging or messaging is just like, look at me, look at how great I am. These are all of the things that I've done. And I know that LinkedIn has that section for like various accomplishments and things. How do you model your LinkedIn profile after, you know, your website, where you're trying to, at least in our opinion, make more of an emotional connection and make it more about the audience? Or is LinkedIn more of that place where you can brag about yourself and show off those accomplishments? Or is there some kind of balance in between?
Yeah, I think that because LinkedIn is a live streaming platform, the content is changing and evolving all the time. You have a little bit more and that means the content should be client focused. It should be focused on your target market, much like you would focus a website on a target market. However, and we recommend here if you're posting, maybe 1 out of every 10 posts can be something that you brag about yourself a little bit. Hey, there's a recent highlight that happened to me. Here's a great result we got for a client. Here's a place I'm going to be speaking at. Here's a really cool development in our firm. Those things can be mixed in there too. And we recommend about 1 out of every 10 posts has that. The rest of it should be really focused on delivering value for your clients and for your target market.
Yeah, and to that point, I get a lot of connection requests on LinkedIn, and one of the things that I'll do is, I'll, especially if I don't know them, and a lot of times, at least a lot recently, I've been getting a lot of requests from like freelancers who claim that they can like promote your podcast and get a bunch of downloads and a bunch of subscribers through iTunes and all of that. And I'll look at their profile and or at least like how it pops up in the app. And one of the things that I'll see a lot of times is like there'll be a section there where it says no recent activity, which means they haven't posted any kind of content or helpful content. And that tells me that they're just out trying to sell. And I will ignore those connection requests every single time. And so to me, to your point, I think that is very important to have consistent, a consistent way to post content to your profile, not just for those reasons, but to, expand the organic reach, get more eyeballs on your stuff, and really help get the word out as to all the ways that you can help people.
Yeah, totally. Some of the other big mistakes we see, and this is with our clients, clients' profiles when we start working with them, they'll have nothing on LinkedIn. So it'll just be, their name, maybe their role, their position, and that is it. Like the no profile picture, nothing. And that's super awesome for us to work with because we're starting with a blank slate and we can
Right.
just recraft it from there. The other extreme we have is someone who's actually been spending a lot of time on LinkedIn. Like they've been trying to do everything the right way. They've got a good profile picture. Their LinkedIn profile is built out. They've got, several hundred connections. They're posting, creating lots of new content. And they come to us and they say, look, I'm spending like hours a week on LinkedIn and I'm getting nothing back. What am I doing wrong? And oftentimes it goes back to they're doing the activity, but because they don't have a plan that sets them up for success with specific goals that they want to get, that activity is just being wasted. And so what we often find is by really targeting what they're trying to do with LinkedIn, establishing some key measures and benchmarks to guide their activity, and then putting together an activity plan, they actually may be spending less time on LinkedIn and getting more results. And one of the common misconceptions that I hear in this regard is people say that, look, if I'm trying to get visibility on LinkedIn, I need to create lots of content on LinkedIn. It's not actually true. You can get a lot of visibility by also engaging and commenting on other people's posts, especially if these are other people who you want to build a relationship with and you've identified them and they're posting on LinkedIn. You see a recent post of theirs, you say, I've got something I want to say to that. You jump on, thank them for their great post, add your insights, and start that conversation. That person might remember you, especially if you're doing that with their posts every couple of months. They are going to remember you. And that's a great way to start building that relationship. And that's an example how not creating your content, but just leveraging someone else's and starting a conversation can do so much more than spending hours to create this amazing article on LinkedIn that you then post and you get nothing, right? It just lands with a thud. And there's nothing more depressing than that knowing you put together great content. It's really good. You know it's good, but no one's reading it. No one's consuming it. That can be super frustrating. So we want to make sure we avoid that.
Yeah. I know hashtags typically popular on Twitter. I mean, by the time this episode comes out, I don't know if Twitter will still be around, but for years, at least, hashtags was a great way to get additional exposure on Twitter. Obviously, I know LinkedIn has those same hashtags. Does it provide a similar kind of value to getting extra exposure? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, we love hashtags. We love one, two, or three of them in a post. More than that isn't great. What's a really cool feature of LinkedIn is you can actually search on a hashtag. So you can, in the search section, you can put hashtag whatever term it is you're looking for, and you will see how many people are following that hashtag. And that gives you a sense for how popular it is. And so what we suggest is that you pick a couple hashtags that are popular, that have, over 100,000 followers, ideally, a few 100,000 at least. So you pick a couple of those that are really popular. That will give your post reach. The third hashtag should be something really, really specific to you, specific to your clients, with a really intimate audience, and
Yeah.
that gives you focus. And so by having that 2-1 rule, two big hashtags, one small one, we found can really amplify your message and get it out there. The same thing goes for tagging people. You can use the @ symbol and tag specific people and invite them into a conversation. That's a really powerful way of bringing those folks in to really start a really engaging post.
Yeah. The other question that I had before we jump into actually having conversations with people, LinkedIn also has the ability for you to create a company page. So, you would have your own personal LinkedIn profile, and then you can also create a company page for your firm, similar to kind of how Facebook allows for business pages. I've heard some people say that it's not, not necessarily worth the time to keep up and manage. I mean, what's your opinion on it? Do you recommend, that your people create a firm page, or do you just tell them just run everything through your personal account?
So when we're talking about the time required to create a company page, I think it's about 5 minutes. Uh,
Yeah.
so let's just say it's not worth the time. It's not actually not that much time. We suggest that our clients do have a company page, specifically with a firm logo. And the reason for that is it just adds legitimacy to you, and to see that firm name, to see the contact information there, to see the logo. It's amazing what that logo picture will do versus a company page that doesn't have one. As far as ongoing updates to the company page, it really depends again on your strategy. If you're looking to use LinkedIn for business development primarily, putting updates on the company page isn't really going to do that much, because LinkedIn focuses its SEO efforts, as you know, John, on the individual postings that do that. They don't spend a lot of effort on the company pages. But where it really shines is if you're looking to build a brand for your firm, specifically around things like recruiting. The
Yeah.
job market is super tight right now. And so we've talked to attorneys about if they're having a hard time hiring. And again, as you mentioned, this is a long-term play. But if you're looking at hiring, posting pictures of company events, posting pictures of community outreach, um, things that the firm is doing, filling that company page so that when you have a candidate who's interested and they are checking you out on LinkedIn, because they will, they totally will, that they see that the firm's values, the firm's activities, and how great of a firm it is to work at is all reflected on that LinkedIn page. That can be a really powerful asset for recruiting.
Yeah, and I love that, and we have we create the company pages for our clients. It's just interesting. It's interesting just hearing the different philosophies in that, because I was talking to a different LinkedIn expert. It was probably early last year at this point, and they were just like, just don't worry about company pages. There's no value in it. There's waste of time. Just don't worry. So it's just interesting to kind of get the different perspectives on it. And I mean, I do lean on your side of it. Especially I hadn't even thought about the recruiting aspect of it. Obviously we stay more on the branding side and building up that side of things, but the recruiting aspect is a great nugget to add in there. So let's talk about getting business from LinkedIn. What is kind of the best way to start approaching different people on LinkedIn? I know you mentioned a little bit before about engaging with other posts and commenting and liking other content, but what is obviously a lot of people go through direct messaging. How's the best way to really begin to foster those kinds of relationships?
Yeah. So I think we mentioned this earlier. LinkedIn is kind of like a big networking meeting, right? And there's a
Yeah.
bunch of people in the room. And so the way that you introduce yourself and say hello is to send that connection invitation, send that direct message. And please don't sell anybody on that. That's not where
Right.
you do the selling. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned it earlier, the ones that reach out and say, "Oh, I can amplify your podcast and all that." They're just trying to sell, and they
Yeah.
have no credibility to back it up. If you're listening to this podcast, you are not those people. You're on a different level, and we don't sell on the first call. So you're reaching out and you're saying hello. So the first thing is to figure out who you should reach out and say hello to.
Mhm.
You identify two groups of people. The first group of people are your ideal referral sources, people who you don't know, and that's really important. You don't know them, but they're your ideal referral sources. The second group are your ideal potential clients. And for most of us on LinkedIn, it's going to be far easier for us to target our ideal referral sources than to directly target our ideal clients. Because when you do that, you get into a sales conversation really quickly, or the client may look at you and say, oh, this is just another vendor who wants to connect and sell me something. So, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And the third group, which I forgot to mention, is just the super low hanging fruit. So let's start there. Uh, if you're looking to grow your LinkedIn connections, go ahead and sync up your address books with LinkedIn and have it send out those invitations on your behalf. That, if you haven't done that recently, that will jump your connections big time. And these are already people who know you, so they're going to be good connections for you. The second piece of low-hanging fruit are your networking groups already. So making sure that you're connected through LinkedIn with everyone that you regularly network and meet with. Okay, so that's the low-hanging fruit. Let's talk about ideal clients, because that's a tough one. When you're reaching out to an ideal client, you might be super tempted, if you're like me, to say, you type in that message, hey, I do some, I work with people just like yourself. We get great results. Would love to have a conversation about it. And then you look at that message, or at least I do, go, oh no, I'm one of those sleazy salespeople. I don't want to be that. So then delete it. So what we've come up with is talking with them about the industry. So reaching out to them and saying, I work with many clients like yourself in this industry. Here are some things we're seeing. Would love to set up some time, 15 minutes to chat on the phone and just get your perspective on these things and share with you more details on what we're seeing. Now you're having a different conversation. This is not a sales conversation. This is an industry thought leadership conversation that they're much more likely to say yes to. And even if they say no, at least they'll know you weren't trying to sell them something. So that's an approach with ideal clients. For your ideal referral partners, it's much, much easier. Reach out to them and say, hey, we serve similar clients, would love to get you to know your business and see how I can help you and how we can help each other. Include the link to your calendar on there so they can just book in and schedule a call, or ask them for some options when you can meet and just do a half-hour Zoom call or a short phone call.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, one of the things I have a lot of times when I'm doing this, for some reason, I will have this audience voice in my head that will raise objections to certain points. And I heard one while you were talking about the low hanging fruit and maybe even potential clients, especially with the lawyer audience. And it's almost like, is there some sort of ethical concern for adding current or past clients, or even trying to get potential clients to connect with me on LinkedIn? And I want to hear your thoughts. If someone asked me that, I would immediately think, well, if you're using LinkedIn the way it's intended to be used, where it's a professional platform, there's no ethical concerns at all. And even then, you're not, because you're not sharing personal information, you're not posting pictures of your kids at their t-ball game. Anything you really post is more around your professional world. But what would you say to someone who would raise that kind of objection?
Yeah. So first off, I'm not an ethics lawyer. So all the lawyers on the call will know that you should talk with your ethics lawyer before you make statements about that.
Yeah.
But in general, I think I would agree with you. However, let me paint out a scenario, right? Which I don't think any lawyer would ever do, but it might happen. Let's say you're uploading your contacts and you don't check who it's sending it to, and you're in the middle of litigation, and one of those contacts is opposing counsel,
Mhm.
right? In that case, you probably don't. I mean, you could connect with them, but you probably don't want to, because you're in the
Yes.
middle of litigation with them. So those kinds of like really weird corner cases could get in the way. And so if someone is uploading their contacts and they're at all concerned about that, and many lawyers will not be, but those who are concerned about that, just know that you can look at every single contact that is sent an invite, so you can select who you want to send an invite to and who you don't. But
Yeah.
in general, you're absolutely right, John. There's generally, most of the time, no ethical issues with it. But those corner case situations, man, they can trip people up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. So as we kind of wrap up here, Um, we've talked about kind of ways to connect with people. You know, how far, I guess, do you kind of expand your reach? I mean, is there, you know, you're talking about referral source. I mean, maybe if you're just trying to work with people in your city, maybe you just search and connect with people in your city. Or do you recommend just, trying to find as many people that are your potential referral source, even if they're on the other side of the country? How do you kind of filter out and choose who you go after?
Yeah, a lot of LinkedIn business development is really establishing yourself as a thought leader in your space.
Yeah.
And so even if your target market is very specific to a location, let's say you have a territory and that is your target, you will get a lot of traction by connecting with thought leaders across the country or across the world, where you can really build that relationship and comment on each other's content and collaborate together. That can be really, really impactful. So just know that wider focus, as long as you're looking to connect with the top, the very best in your profession, the very best in your industry, that is going to be time very well spent.
Yeah, and kind of an obvious example, at least for us, because we're kind of in that podcasting world. I mean, you can connect with someone on the other side of the country. I mean, I'm in North Carolina. I think you're in California, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And you know, even if I was just trying to do business with people in North Carolina, me being on your podcast, like you said, is me elevating my thought leadership. And then I can take that episode and I can share it with my network and be like, hey, look at this thing that I did. And then that's what elevates your brand and your expert status. So to your point, I absolutely agree that there's still a ton of value in casting a really wide net in that regard.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, keeping it exclusive, right? Not everyone is someone you want to connect with and invest the time in. You want to pick the best of the best.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you've got maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome going on, like you're not worthy, or maybe you're just getting started in your profession and you don't feel like you're at that level, connect with them anyway, because you know what? You're going to learn a ton from those people. And there was this quote from, I think, Brian Tracy that I remember. Everyone that's at the front of the buffet line, so everyone that's at the top of their game in their profession, started off at the end of the buffet line at the very back. So if you're just getting started, still reach high, cast that wide net, because it will bear fruit for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been really great. A lot of great information, which I expected nothing less. I know you do a lot of great things with the legal community and just with business owners in general. How can people learn more about Law Firm Success Group and LinkedIn for Lawyers?
Yeah, thank you. So they can connect with me on LinkedIn, Alay Yajnik. It's hard to spell, but easy to pronounce and very unique. The other way is to visit our website, linkedinforlawyers.net. In fact, if you visit the website, you can actually try one of our online courses at no charge. No credit card required. It's a great way to get into LinkedIn and to see if it's a good fit for you long-term for business development.
Yeah, and you also host a podcast as well. Let everybody know about that.
Yeah, so the podcast is Lawyer Business Advantage, and John's been a recent guest, and we did a fantastic episode together, which I'm sure we'll put in the show notes. We really focus it on lawyers who are looking to grow their law firms. Lots of good ideas, lots of good insights. We have attorneys on the call. We have also awesome professionals like yourself, John, that are on there sharing their tips and their wisdom to help you grow your firm. So it's Lawyer Business Advantage.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely give that a listen. One final question for you before we wrap up, and that is, if you had one final piece of advice for our listeners, what would it be?
If you're going to commit to LinkedIn for business development, you need a plan.
Mm.
And taking the time to put that together will be time really well spent.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll help you keep and stay consistent with it, because like we said up at the beginning, consistency is key. You can't just spend an hour refreshing your LinkedIn profile and expect to get a ton of results. It's an ongoing process and something to keep up with over time.
And if someone asks me for one piece of advice, I give them two, because I like to over deliver. And
Absolutely.
the other piece of advice would be to have patience, because the very last thing that's going to happen once you've done everything else right is that you're going to get results. But that's the last thing. You have to do everything else right first.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I know, I think we talked on a previous episode just how we've been conditioned as a society to just with all of this instant gratification that I think a lot of business owners, they start marketing, they expect instant results, and that's just typically not how it ends up going. So thank you for reiterating that, and thank you all for tuning in this week and listening to the episode. Thank you for all the ratings and reviews. If you haven't done so yet, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you're consuming the show. And that's going to do it. Alay, thank you again so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on center stage, John. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/center stage.